We haven't been so quiet in a long time. This is interesting.
Good mindfulness moment.
You know, I found sitting at home on Zoom at my table, I forgot anybody was watching. I was like, oh, no big deal. I'm a little nervous now.
Yeah, it's different.
Everybody stop looking at me.
Yeah. We probably are live now, but I'm going to give it one more minute or so.
You're live.
Oh, thank you. Wow. Good morning and welcome to this regular meeting of the Cook County Board of Commissioners on Tuesday, July 13th, 2021 at 8:30. Call this meeting to order, and please rise and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And as I said, this is a regular meeting, right? Nothing new here. Not for the record, this is our first in-person meeting since the COVID-19 pandemic started, and we have 3 new commissioners seating with us today, and so welcome for your first in-person meeting.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to have you, yeah, we'll just adjust as needed, but this is how it goes here. Any adjustments to the agenda this morning? Hearing or seeing none, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Hawkins. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I support.
Thank you, Commissioner Swalson. We have a motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 2 in the agenda is the public comment period. And this is a time for anyone in the public to speak on any issue that they would like for us to hear. At our discretion, we can ask questions or answer, but we won't get into a debate. And the key is to have respectful listening and then dialogue if we go down that road. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak at this point? And for the record, I don't see anyone in our audience this morning, and it doesn't sound like there's anyone on the phone. So I'll close the public comment period.
Mr. Chair, I do have a written comment.
Thank you, Mr. Yorkie. Would you like to read that at this point?
Yes. So this is an email that I received from Nancy Larson, who resides at 3644 East Highway 61. Excuse me. She writes, "Thank you for offering an opportunity to comment on the long-standing housing need in Cook County." I should preface this by saying this was in response to an article that I wrote for the News Herald that appeared on June 18th. And so Nancy writes, "Thank you for offering an opportunity to comment on the long-standing housing need in Cook County. In my early years in the county as Gunflint District Ranger for the Superior National Forest from 2012 to 2017, we offered full-time year-round relatively good-paying jobs that were accepted and then later withdrawn because the new employee looked into housing in the county more fully and could not see their housing needs being met. I'm aware of rentable homes becoming vacation rental by owner and now homeless tenants who fill local jobs needing to relocate elsewhere because new housing could not be located. So the idea of affordable workforce housing goes well beyond meeting the needs of the tourism industry in the county. In fact, if we had the range of affordable workforce housing here, we might be able to attract more tradesmen, hire more deputy sheriffs, or find a local bookkeeper to help make Cook County a thriving community, a quality place to live year-round, and not just a place that has a, quote, tourism-reliant economy, unquote. So my comment to you at this time is about the claim that Cook County has just a tourism reliant economy, quote unquote, and needs housing to support it. If we say it enough, people believe it, and then we create more policy or develop more strategies to prop up an industry that has already exceeded the carrying capacity for this small, once pristine place. Instead, let's put the focus on affordable workforce housing that meets the need for people to create a business here that employs others, or for people to work here year-round to meet the needs of the plethora of businesses, nonprofits, or governmental agencies who want to attract quality employees, or to meet the needs of people who have homes here and seek to live and enjoy life here while also contributing to the local economy. Please, less focus on housing needs for the businesses that cater to the wandering tourist, but more on the vision of having a well-rounded, thriving community that meets the needs of residents and the full gamut of employers. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Administrator York, and thank you, Ms. Larson, for the comment. I think we hear you loud and clear, and yeah, I'm not sure that our focus is purely on the tourism industry for housing. I think we see it comprehensively for all walks of life, and I appreciate the comment there to clarify that. Any other written comments?
That was all I had.
Okay. Well, then I'll close the public comment period, and moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any items that a commissioner would like to pull from the consent agenda? Commissioner Hawkins, please.
I would like to pull item D, the resignation.
Thank you. Any other items from commissioners? And maybe we'll move that item D down to, well, I think, yeah, administrator.
I can speak to that.
We'll put that down on 9B and a half. Or just, we'll put 9C and then move C down to D for administrator updates. Having pulled item D, I would look for a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Storley. We have
And
a
I
motion.
second.
Thank you, Commissioner Swalson. Motion and support. Any further discussion? Hearing or seeing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Commissioners. And then that brings us down to item 4 on the agenda, COVID-19 update. Good morning, Grace.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills, and it's wonderful to see everyone's smiling faces for the first time, for some of you ever, in the commissioner role, and for some of you in the past, almost year and a half here. So it's wonderful to see you, and thank you again for the opportunity to give an update on the COVID-19 situation.
Yes, you can move that. Yeah.
It's a
It
little
seems
different
awkward,
than
but yeah.
my laptop in the home office, but it's okay. We'll make it work.
Thank you.
So the case count now stands at 175 since the beginning of the pandemic. That's up 1 since the last board meeting 2 weeks ago. The vaccination rate for Cook County is 71% of Cook County residents having completed the COVID-19 vaccination series. So at this point, we continue to have the lowest cumulative case rate and the highest vaccination rate in the state of Minnesota. So very proud of all of our community members for being a part of that. It certainly has been a community effort. I will go into some of our programmatic updates and operational updates, but I would say that the biggest update is that we actually met as an incident command team last Friday and have decided to close the Emergency Operations Center for COVID-19 in the county. And I want to talk a little bit about why we made that decision and what that means for the response going forward. The pandemic certainly is not over, but we all came to the conclusion that at this juncture, it can really be a response that lives within both public health and our healthcare partners in the community, being North Shore Health, Sawtooth Mountain Clinic, and the Grand Portage Health Services. So the key response activities that we've been undertaking for quite some time will continue. We will continue to offer testing for COVID-19. We continue to recommend testing for anyone unvaccinated or vaccinated who is feeling sick or has been exposed to a person who is infectious if you are not vaccinated. We continue to offer vaccination through our healthcare partners with support from public health. We continue to offer regular communications updates to the community. We'll continue to make sure that everyone is aware of how the situation is changing. When it comes to board updates, I would propose to fold them into the Public Health and Human Services Board updates that Allison gives on a monthly basis. I'm happy to be there as requested if the situation changes radically, or to fold them in as a written update at that monthly meeting so that the commissioners have a way to continue to monitor the situation as well. I'm always very open to speaking with the board or changing things if the situation warrants that. But I think at this point we've really come to a place where we can manage the day-to-day operations of the pandemic response within healthcare and public health. I would like to take a moment to recognize the service of some of the members of the Incident Command team who've been committed to our response for many, many months. So our core Incident Command team has included myself and Mike Keyport as co-incident commanders from both emergency management and public health. Kimber Ralstead is the medical liaison to the Emergency Operations Center. A combination of folks who have been involved in communications. That would be Nick Cusick, Allison McIntyre, and Lisa Sorley, who all played the public information officer role at certain points in the response. Allison has also played a key role in linking us to the human services elements of the response throughout. Jim Boyd has acted as the business liaison to the Emergency Operations Center and has provided really crucial updates on how we could best support our local businesses throughout a very difficult year. Rena Rogers has played the dual role as leading support as a community liaison and also providing IT support, including the Hub website, which is her staff, especially Kyle Oberg, have been really instrumental in keeping up to date. That continues to be a way that community members can access vaccination opportunities and information on the COVID response. And then finally, Brady Powers and Lori Erickson in their role as supporting the financial aspect of the Emergency Operations Center. And so together, I think the team has done a really fantastic job. We've met regularly for many months, and I think that the well-rounded group of committed individuals that haven't always been here giving updates to the board have really made a huge difference in how we've tried to be responsive to the changing needs of the community throughout the COVID pandemic. So we are planning to send out a media release later today that announces to the community why we've made this decision, as well as what it means for some of those more operational pieces that may be more publicly visible. We want to make sure everyone knows. We continue to offer contact tracing, testing, vaccination, and communication to the public. With that said, I will speak a little bit about some of our areas of continuing focus. We continue to focus on our teen vaccination rate. As a subsegment of the Cook County population, the teen vaccination rate is relatively low. It's under 50%, and so we're planning to do an event in collaboration with the clinic and other local partners at the community center in August to try to have one more back-to-school opportunity for vaccination, with the hope that COVID will be less disruptive to our middle and high school students in the coming school year. We are also planning in the fall to do some volunteer recognition. We tallied up what the volunteer service through Minnesota Response has looked like throughout the response. We've had around 200 active Minnesota Response volunteers who've contributed over 4,000 hours of service to the community, which is another talk about the incident command team. I mean, the volunteer support from the community has been outstanding, and we simply could not have had this type of response without that type of volunteer turnout for everything from food distribution to vaccination events to contact tracing and to staffing our community support line for behavioral health support. We continue to provide technical assistance to businesses and schools. Locally, as seasonal workers come to the community, we're connecting with business owners and making sure we can get them set up for vaccination if they're interested. That's become a huge focus for us, as well as supporting our schools and childcare as the CDC and MDH guidance for COVID continues to change. We are committed to keeping communications up for the community. Right now, the message has really shifted to make sure people know that we continue to have vaccination opportunities available through our local healthcare partners, and that it's not too late to access a vaccine if you're interested. We also have talked quite a bit about what it means to scale down in a way that we could scale back up if needed, if something, for example, like a booster shot were to be needed, or if we do have localized outbreaks in the future, to ensure that we're able to quickly scale back up and meet the needs of the community. And with that, we also are starting to move somewhat into the recovery phase, looking at what other pieces of the pandemic have done to community health in areas like vaccination rates, mental health, substance use disorder, and food access. So that is my update to the board, and I'm happy to take questions from the commissioners.
Thank you, Grace. Any questions right off the bat here for Grace? I don't either. I guess just, if if there's something we can do further to reduce the barriers to help with the vaccination efforts, if that's educational or what have you, it'd be wonderful to hear more about that, and we can have more discussions. But I really appreciate all your work and the team's work. Outstanding to be the highest vaccination rate and the lowest COVID rate in the state. I think absolutely we should be proud of that, and excellent leadership from Mr. Keepard and yourself and Allison and the whole team. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. And I would say thanks just to the community in general. I mean, we've definitely worked hard, but this really has taken everyone. Everyone has played a role, and it's been a challenging year for everyone. So I feel very grateful for the response that we've gotten from community members as well as from the board. So thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, you got off easy there, Grace. No questions.
It's the in-person, right? It does feel different, but like I said, it's good to see you all.
Thank you. And I don't know if Emergency Management Director Keepard, if you have anything you'd want to add for this kind of.
Just add a couple comments, yes, if I could.
Please, sir.
Grace summarized our accomplishments and everything real well. The only thing I would add is that Grace and I will continue to work together as we would whether there was a pandemic or not. And I would just like to take this opportunity, and I think I can speak for Grace, to thank you all. You supported us, everybody, the auditor's office, the administrator's office, both James and our interim, Rena Rogers, the attorney's office, all of you. I'd just like to thank you for supporting our efforts in this extended event, I'll call it. So thank you all.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Keeper. I appreciate that. Well, very good. And that'll be our last separate item for the COVID-19 update, unless things change here drastically, and that feels really good. But I do want to emphasize that we're not completely out of it yet. It's just another shift, and I think that's important to recognize. We can move on to item 5 now, the sheriff's office, and we have Jail Administrator Gary Fagerman with us, and item A is the camera system installation and integration with the door system for the jail.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What we have is 3 separate quotes here. One is for the purchase of the equipment for the camera system. That's the $18,095, and the second one is for the installation. Actually, there's So there's 4. The installation is 18917, and then included with the installation is the integration with the computer system. That's the 11,677.20. And then the final one is at 25,131.82. That's for the new jail locks, door locks. The system is just way out of date, and from time to time, the computer will need to be reset if the dispatch is trying to open up a jail door and it doesn't open, then they've got to reset the computer system, which sometimes can take several minutes, and in the case of an emergency, that's not going to be acceptable. So, and then with the camera system, what's happening is the cameras are freezing. They're not recording a smooth recording, so if we need a recording for court or something like that, or there's an incident in the jail, we may not necessarily have that on camera.
Thank you. Yeah, this seems like a really critical piece for public safety and for our operations, and so I really appreciate the work in identifying the issues and finding solutions, and certainly not a small cost, but the importance of it is the utmost there. So
correct, and I'd like to thank MIS and Keishan for all the work that he's put into this. He's done a lot of legwork on it. So.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well. Thank you very much. Do I have any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Storley.
Oh.
Bless you.
Thank you, Chairman. So when you did this research, were these the 3 companies that you ended up with, or did you have other applications?
We had other applications. There were, I think the highest one was $90-some thousand, and that included, that was a whole new system, and we actually looked at it. I think there was 3 or 4 different options, and this is the one that we decided to go with.
The best.
Yeah.
Keishan, did you help with that?
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Storley. Commissioner Hawkins, you had questions as well?
Yes, thank you. I'm just saw it in our capital budget that we have 80,000 that has been budgeted last year and for this year. So did last year we do anything with that 80,000?
Not that I'm aware of.
Or was, so we were just budgeting for it so that we could do this someday?
We knew the life was ending.
Okay.
soon.
So really, we've set aside 160,000 then
No,
for
it's the
courthouse?
same 80,000.
Okay, it just, but in that budget thing you sent me, it looked like 2020, we budgeted 80,000 for security, courthouse security, and then 80,000 again in '21.
Yeah, so not knowing it would be, which would be needed first, courthouse or LEC, turns out LEC is more critical this year, so.
Yeah, sounds like that. But, so the courthouse security then, what, are we working on that?
I'm doing a research for the courthouse security
Okay.
cameras, and the reason why it's taking time is because it has to integrate with their current security system. So if you see there's a duress alarm under your desk, if you pull that, dispatcher has to, there will be flashing lights, alarms, and dispatchers has to see the nearest camera, which is that one.
Okay.
And that one. So if we go with a different camera system, this is pretty old, and if we buy the same system, it would be like taking 2 steps back.
Okay.
So we are going with the newer system and making sure the new system integrates with what we have right now. So that research is taking a while, but I think we'll have answer in next couple of weeks.
Oh.
I'm in touch with 2 companies, and I'm getting the pricing.
Right.
Once I have it, I'll update it to James, and we'll go from there.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and whereas the courthouse system certainly needs attention, the law enforcement center, I think, has been determined to be more critical, and it's almost fortuitous that we can do one at a time, just for budgetary reasons. So,
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I'd also like to recognize the great work of Keishan in getting, not only doing the research to find us the best equipment, and that was quite a process, But, you know, these are complicated systems, and having a camera system that integrates, in the case of the LEC with the door system, and then also in this building with the Duress alarms, there's a lot to sort through. And not only did Keishan do a lot of work to get us the best solution, but he also worked to get us the best price. And so, Keishan, I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you, James.
So is our jail door system operating the way it should
It
be?
is, and we have key backup, but it's, you know, that's not the ideal thing. It's just occasionally the system will freeze, and dispatch has to reset the computer. Sometimes they have to reset it 2 or 3 times, and it can take minutes. We do have, you know, there's options if we need to get in there in emergency. We do have keys in another lockbox, but if, depending on where you are in the jail, if you have to run around the building to get to that particular spot, it's time's wasted, so.
So is that on a replacement list and
Yes.
time frame then?
Yes, that's part of this. They have to build a new computer system for, I think that old one is Windows 7.
Yeah,
So-
the computer is like 11 years old, I think, so.
Right.
That was the first thing.
It's time.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Hawkins. And any other questions? Okay. At which point I'd entertain a motion here.
Would motion to approve?
Thank you, Commissioner Swalson. We have a motion. Is there support?
Sullivan supports.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Administrator. That brings us down to item 6 with Attorney Hicken. This is going to be a closed.
And it's going to be at 10 o'clock.
Oh, that's right. Timing is critical, so we need to skip that. Okay, thank you. Then we can move on to item 7, Land Services. Director Tim Nelson, good morning.
Morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Got a few items before you today, and yes, it is a very different kind of experience now, being little screens I'm actually picturing in my head, but it's okay. The first item with regards to the county funding of the low-interest loan, septic loan program, I'd actually like to request to kind of table that to the next meeting. There's been a lot of questions that had come up. There's been some movement in the amount of funding from the Department of Ag, and I'm trying to work with AMC to see how that actually impacts the counties. I know we currently do have more requests in the hopper than we do funds available through that loan program, so I don't want to extend it out too long, but I think the next meeting on the 27th would be appropriate for that. And in the meantime, I will send out additional information to the commissioners for that. So just would like to table that for today.
Very good. Any questions about that from commissioners? Okay. Entertain a motion to table.
I'll make the motion to table this
Thank you, Commissioner Hawkins. We have a motion. Any support?
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Starley. Motion and support. Any further discussion at this point? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion to table passes unanimously. Thank you. We can move on to item B.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Item B is with regards to the Border Route Trails Association. They are looking to go ahead and improve a couple campsites along their trail system by adding fire rings and a field latrines in those locations. We currently, as the county, have the lease for those sites. It's a 20-year lease, and it was last updated the 2015-2016 timeframe. But the DNR would require that if we put these or allow these improvements to be done on the sites, that we go ahead and update the lease to reflect that those are going on there. Like I said, we updated in 2016, and We did discuss this at the Parks and Trails Commission meeting on the 29th of June, and the Parks and Trails Commission unanimously recommends that the lease be updated to reflect the addition of the improvements on those campsites. Again, it will be no impact of cost. The Border Route Trails Association would be the one, the folks doing the work out there. They're obtaining the latrines and the fire rings from the U.S. Forest Service, and that responsibility is up to them, so there will be no change in no impact for the county with regards to any funds or any budget on that. So just would open that up for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Any questions from commissioners?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I did talk to Mike Young, and he said there would be a slight increase in the annual lease. Currently, that's $350. He was going to look into how much that increase was, but I think it's going to be pretty insignificant. But I just wanted to point that out as far as the financials.
Oh, okay. Very good. Thank you, Assessor Thompson. Commissioner Hawkins, you had a question?
Well, yeah, actually, thank you, because it was about the lease fee, and I read in that contract that it every 5 years can be upped, and I think $350 is pretty cheap for them to get away with. And I'm like, I want to get every penny out of the state that we can, and I don't understand this school trust lands and why we have to approve this. But anyway.
Maybe Brady can answer that one.
Not offhand.
Not offhand. Maybe the county attorney can answer that one.
Not offhand.
I was just curious.
And I would say, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Hawkins, this is one of those kind of evolving issues where we only recently kind of created that Parks and Trails Division. And historically, the leases with these, with regards to county lands, tax forfeit lands, kind of fell with the land commissioner and the auditor's office, and kind of where, so we're actually in the process of really looking to identify exactly where these would fall into place. If you look at the existing lease that was updated in 2015, 2016, actually the auditor signed off on that lease. We were looking to have Bob sign off on that lease as the land commissioner, because right now we are still in a little bit of a flux in terms of the long-term vision of the Parks and Trails division of the Land Services Department. So that is one of those things in flux, and that's why we kind of have this diversity of answers or not answers
Okay.
in regards to the lease.
I think the reason is that, we are a branch of the state for the entire county, and organizations like BTA, they're nonprofits, and the state prefers to have their leases, their contracts with us in reference to them. It's the same with all, I think probably with all the state grants for recreation trails, et cetera. So we have a contract with them to do the maintenance, et cetera, but the state prefers it. It's more, I think it just gives them comfort and security.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Any other questions at this point? Commissioner Storley.
Thank you, Chairman. On a lighter note, this is a really hidden trail up there. It's a hidden gem in our area. And many years ago when I hiked it, I thought, they just need to upgrade their campsites here and their areas of concern when you're trudging along for hours and then have to camp without a campsite. So I'm glad we can be a part of that and just work through helping the association better outfit that trail.
Thank you, Commissioner Storley. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Yeah, the discussion we had at the Parks and Trails meeting was, I thought, really exciting just for the opportunities and what there is. And the Parks and Trails Division is still quite young, and just the potential there is huge. And so, but it gets into a much larger conversation very quickly. And so this is just kind of keeping things moving along with some improvements, identifying that need. So it was a good discussion, and really happy to be partnering with those that we can. So If there's no further questions, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to accept the recommendation of Parks and Trails to update the lease.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. We have a motion. Is there support?
Storley, support.
Thank you, Commissioner Storley. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
Okay, Mr. Chair, we got one more item on here, and if I may be so bold, I have visual aids. This is we're talking a little a flow chart here with regards to the membership of the Parks and Trails Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Paper?
It's paper.
Thank you.
Okay, in just discussing on this last item, the Parks and Trails is fairly young. We do have this Parks and Trails Commission, and we kind of ebb and flow in terms of being able to get enough folks to serve on the Parks and Trails Commission. Sometimes we really struggle getting a quorum to that. As of late, we've been kind of successful in having a full slate of members. However, we did recently have now 2 resignations, people who really stated that they wanted to remain on, although the busyness of their jobs and lives kind of restricted them from being able to continue on. So we have a vacancy in District 1 and District 5, or I'm sorry, 4. And we had put out for advertisements on that. We had received 2 applications for filling in District 4. And in discussions with the Parks and Trails Commission and such, we kind of thought, well, we do have 2 positions that are an at-large and an at-large alternate position. And those individuals have been on the board or on the commission for some time. So it might be worthwhile to go ahead and move one of those to the District 4. Adam Trefel has been on, and he actually does reside in District 4, so it would make sense to go ahead and shift him into the District 4 spot. Take Randall Knutson, who has been very, very effective and a very vocal participant on the commission, move him into the at-large primary spot, because regrettably he's not been able to vote on issues during the time that he's been there, or serve as the chair, or anything else that he's kind of wanted to do. So it would be good to move him into that at-large primary position. And then of the 2 candidates that we have for the District 4, kind of determine, and I've spoken with each of those members who did indicate that they would be fine in just falling into the at-large alternate position at this point in time. So I just leave that with you 2. We have actually former Commissioner Heidi Dukirk and Chad Benish as the 2 applicants for that. And I would just open that up for you for discussion.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Any questions from commissioners? Any comments? Any thoughts?
I just wanted to be upfront with everyone. I had encouraged Chad Benish to actually apply for this position. He is a person living in District 4 who I met through ISD 166. He's currently a chemistry teacher in the high school. And when I formerly was at ISD 166, through Grand Portage, I had an opportunity to work with him. He has great leadership skills, and I think he would bring a lot to the table because he is a very avid bicyclist and a hiker. He uses our parks and trails extensively, and I'd just like to really support him. As a new member, a new person in our community, to have an opportunity to be in local government. I like to encourage people to do that, so just wanted to make that public.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan, and I appreciate you reaching out and finding applicants, because that's a big part of the challenge here, is finding people that are willing to serve. And I want to thank Commissioner Dukirk, and she knows that as well, and she stepped up and put in her application. So I really appreciate that. It is clear that District 4 has pretty good representation on the Parks and Trails Commission, and that's great. We it's kind of central to our geography, and one thought I have is we do want to make sure that we can find good representation across all the districts, and we do. Aside, we still need that District 1 seat. We'll stay on that. Yeah. At this point, I guess if there's no further discussion or questions, I'd be open to a motion to accept one of the two candidates.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to approve Chad Benish at the at-large alternate position.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. We have a motion. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Hawkins. And any further discussion? Mr. Nelson.
Mr. Chair, just because those other people had been appointed to those positions, I'm wondering if the motion should include the movement of Adam Trefo from the at-large primary position into District 4 and Randall Knutson from the at-large alternate into the at-large primary position.
Very good point. Thank you. Are we amenable to amending the motion?
I am amenable to
Okay.
Also including the proposed membership configuration.
Okay, and do we have support for that
Yes,
amendment? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nelson, for that point of clarification. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day. Well, that moves us down to item 8, the auditor. Auditor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is the project the airport had been planning for this year, 2020. Back in February, we approved a contract with RS&H for the engineering and bid services, which they completed in the spring. Received 4 bids for the asphalt, the ceiling, crack ceiling, and the bids were high bid of $108,700 and the low bid from Farners of $63,995.50. And RS&H analyzed the bids. Their bid is acceptable, and a request that you accept them as the qualifying low bid. I asked why was that so unusually low. It's considerably below what they estimated for the engineering. And he said, A, they had a lot of competition, and apparently they all knew they were competing. And 2, this company is doing a similar project up in the Northeast, so they're already in the area, and they were able to cut their prices. So that's the reasoning.
Excellent. Any questions for Auditor Powers? Commissioner Hawkins, please.
Yeah, so I was reading through those documents, and this is covered by the federal FAA, right? And there was a $2,500 admin fee. Does that stay in your office? Because I think you obviously deserve it.
Only to the hours that we document, but it's also for like Rod Roy and any other admin fees and any advertising that has to go on.
Well, I'm
et cetera.
guessing it's your department that fills out all that paperwork and checks it off, and I'm like, wow.
Some of it, but it's not, no, not most of what you saw in there, no.
Oh,
That's
okay.
RS&H as the engineer does the vast majority of that.
Okay,
So,
well, it was a little
yeah,
complicated
yeah.
to read through, and I was like,
I actually kind of apologize. Had I looked through it closely, I probably would not have put that voluminous
well, I thought it
amount.
was pretty important.
But
If
it
you
was-
put it in there, I
yeah.
bet no.
But it was,
yes, I thought it was
it's easier to
100
take what they send
pages.
you and just attach it than to try to pick through it and make it
Okay.
smaller and more readable.
Yeah,
so.
I don't need to know all that
Okay.
stuff next time. Thank you.
So you read it all, okay.
I did, because I
did.
thought I was going to miss something.
It's good bedtime reading.
Yeah.
Not only did I read it all, I printed it all. I could hardly find a binder big enough to hold it.
But I know every piece of equipment that this company has now, and what their depreciation is.
There we
I
go.
realized the size of it myself until after I attached it and saw it. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to approve the motion for the low bid.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. We have a motion. Is there support?
Swallowson, support.
Thank you, Commissioner Swallowson. We have support. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item B, Auditor Powers.
So it's unusual for you to see these so close together. Typically, they're spread apart. And we could have got this on the first meeting in June, and it slipped my mind, and I think also Rod and John at the airport. But so we just didn't get it on the agenda. So here they all line up today. So this is the actual contract with Farner Asphalt Sealers for the crack sealing and seal coating. They've included the standard contract that RS&H uses for these types of contracts, and then there's a performance and a payment bond. I don't think the signed versions were in the attachment, but I do have the signed versions of those. They're not required for a project this size, but they do that. It's a standard practice for the airport projects, so those are both included. So I'd ask for any questions or approval of the contract. I don't know if Molly, if you've had time to take a look at it.
I can't, I have not had time to look at it since I was out last week, but it looks pretty simple, and I will review it today. So maybe we want to do a motion pending attorney approval. RS&H, I've seen RS&H's form contracts before, and they're typically pretty protective of the county. I only object to the performance bond and payment bond saying no all men buy these by present, but I'm not going to. That's not a legal objection per se.
Thank you for catching that.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments for Auditor Powers or Attorney Hicken at this point? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to approve the motion for the contract subject to Attorney Hicken's approval.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. We have a motion. Is there support?
Swallowson, support.
Thank you, Commissioner Swallowson. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And item 8C, Auditor Powers.
And this is a project that just came up recently. They've had trouble with their airport lighting controller and regulator. I guess it's actually the regulator part of the controller. And it's actually not working at the moment. You cannot land airplanes at night without the lighting. So they went out quickly, got bids. They got 2 quotes for the equipment replacement, and at first they chose the lower one, but they learned they could get the higher quote much quicker, weeks quicker, and given that the airport's not open at night and there could be emergencies, they chose to recommend the higher quote, which you can see is $14,474 ADB safeguard, and then they got an electrician. So there's that's not part of this quote, but for a service. So it's all set up. The electrician will stop by and pick up the unit and bring it up here as soon as possible and get it installed. So this is request for approval of that. This will, the state has a fund for equipment like this, so this is not an FAA grant. An FAA grant would take literally months, so that's the other speed option. So we take a 75% grant instead of a 90% grant in order to get the airport open again. And then we'll use what we can of the American Rescue Plan for the airport, that funding to try to fill in the 25%. So.
Thank you. And yeah, I appreciate the timing of this as far as the faster one, even though it is a higher cost, and seems pretty critical, and just how it can line up that the other airport had it unused, and being able to use that, I think, is a good opportunity.
Yeah, so they're actually getting the equipment faster because they're getting it's not used, an already purchased.
Oh, thank you.
Unused.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm sorry.
Unused.
Already purchased, unused, at another airport that the electrician is going to pick it up, so they don't have to wait, and then they'll replace that for that airport, which doesn't need it as quickly as we do.
Yeah.
So kind of all fell together.
Yeah, yeah.
They did some good work in finding that. And the low quote was 9,000 something and the highest 14, so the difference is 5,000 for that speed.
And ARP will be
Yeah.
covering that. Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? Commissioner Hawkins?
Yeah, so I question the ARP funding. Do we have a committee that's approved that that's what we should be using this money for? I thought we had a committee for ARP dollars that was going to make recommendations of what it should be used for.
Not for the airport.
Yeah, this is not part of the county allocation.
Okay.
This is their allocation they already.
Yeah, it's very specific, and it can't be used as, it's very specific to the
Okay.
airport, this use.
All right, I just wanted to clarify
No.
where,
Yeah.
which
Good-
what fund this is coming out of.
Very,
asked.
yeah, very good point to make. And yeah, my understanding is almost to the point where how is the airport going to be using this ARP money? And this seems like a really good opportunity
Okay.
to take advantage of.
And just to kind of tie in, when they got their 30,000 for last year for COVID, they tied it, the state and FAA tied it directly into their maintenance funding and so they didn't have to figure out projects and plans. They knew they were underfunded for maintenance anyway, so they just added it to that contract.
Okay.
And it's all spent. So.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, one more?
Please, yes.
I just noticed in the paperwork that the time frame was July 7th through 9th. Are we approving this after the fact? That was in the quote in there. Did they already do it? Is it up and running?
No, they haven't
Oh,
done it.
okay,
No.
just wondering.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, where is that?
It was in the contract.
Yeah.
Um,
Let's see if we can.
I didn't see that either.
I think it was, of course, I didn't highlight it on this one.
Well,
Yeah.
okay.
Anyway.
Good catch, thank you. I appreciate the attention to detail. I see it now, yes,
Oh.
that's on page 14 of 15 of that item. Timeframe will be from Wednesday, July 7th through Friday, July 9th, but,
Yeah, and they've changed that.
okay.
I think we've updated that, my letter request on the grant for it, we revised it like 3 times already, so I don't know which version that is tied to, so we'll have a final that'll fit.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the authorization to execute Minnesota Department of Transportation grant agreement for airport improvement, excluding land acquisition.
Thank you, Commissioner Hawkins. We have a motion. Is there support?
Sullivan supports.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Auditor Powers. And we're still quite ahead of schedule. Well, I guess there wasn't a schedule per se, but we're flying here.
That's not a bad thing.
No, well,
Give Kendra a call and see if she might be available earlier.
Sure, if you want to.
it's,
Great.
I think we can, well, as you will. Meanwhile, we'll move on to item 9 with the administrator.
All right.
Administrator Yoki.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. It's good to see you all in person. The first item that I have today is a request for an additional .5 FTE Human Resources Generalist to assist the HR Director in carrying out daily HR functions. The summary describes the circumstances that led to the situation back in 2019 when this position was created. Pamela Dixon, who is our current HR Director, took the position with the understanding that we actually had in the budget a .5 FTE generalist to assist in carrying out those duties. That turned out not to be the case. And so the additional work, there's a lot more work than can be accomplished in a 40-hour week, or as it turns out, even a 50 and 60-hour week sometimes. And so we have been using staff help both from my office and more recently from the auditor's office to assist in carrying out some of the sort of day-to-day activities under HR. For example, benefits administration and payroll. However, in recent months, it has become very apparent that the workload for the director far exceeds what we can reasonably expect her to do. I will say Pamela's dedication to her job and her contributions to our organization are exceptional. She has done a great job for us. And we're at a point now where she feels like she cannot maintain the pace that she has been working at over the last few months. And we've had some very lengthy conversations about the situation, and I'm in agreement that we need to put some additional horsepower behind our HR efforts. And so the proposal here is for Pamela to step back to working 30 hours a week for an indefinite period, and for us to add 0.5 FTE generalist to assist in the day-to-day duties of HR. And as the agenda item indicates, the cost of the position would be a little over $31,000. Part of that, or a good part of that, would be offset by the savings, excuse me, the savings that we would realize from Pamela's dropping down to 3/4 time. That savings would be a little over $23,000. So the net impact of the budget would be a little over $8,000. And again, I'm always reluctant to bring forward proposals to add staff unless there's a clear demonstrated need, and I feel very confident in this case that there is. So with that, I would stand for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Yorkie. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Swalson.
Yeah, I am also reluctant to add to our overall staffing. However, in the discussions that I've had with Ms. Dixon on this effort, and fully understanding, once I started to question and understand all of the things that she's involved with, particularly with our 2 years in a row of contract negotiations where she is at the table for all of those, yes, and then still trying to accomplish the duties of, being HR for the county. I actually started to take quite a different perspective on this. So I would tell you, I not only support it, I am concerned whether she's still going to be able to accomplish what she needs with the additional help and, and bringing her hours back. Right. I support her in that and want her to, for her own well-being and being able to continue on. I support her in that effort. But, yeah, I think it's going to be challenging even with the additional staff resource that we're adding,
that may well
or is being proposed to add.
Thank you, Commissioner Swanson. Commissioner Hawkins?
Yes, I'd like to also say some things. And I want to start by saying, I think Pam has done an excellent job. She's a wonderful person. So I'm going to talk about the job and not the person, okay? Just want to make that clear. The fact, I would agree, that department needs help. But I have brought up before this board before, when we've had job descriptions brought before us, that I say, is this reasonable? Can this really be done in a 40-hour week? And I was told I was micromanaging. Well, here we are, and our HR director is saying she can't get it done in a 40-hour week, which to me says we have a problem with our process. And I want to fix the problem with the process. So I know there's other issues. I did some work in that department when I was an employee here. There's issues there. We have outdated systems that don't talk to each other. Data entry has to be put in 3 different places, 3 different ways. Now, I get we used to have a Kronos. We were going to go with a new payroll system that was going to integrate everything and make it easier. That was a fiasco. And at the time, this board, the previous board, decided, take a step back, let's reevaluate, let's wait for a new administrator to come on board. And Brady, you were going to check in with, I'm sorry, I might say it wrong, MSIS, because where we get our payroll and our RT Vision time card, that looked like maybe it was going to go away and we were going to have to come up with an alternative, is the way it was proposed to us, the county, when we went with the Kronos system. I'm wondering about the status of all that. I think it's kind of important that we make sure the HR department and the payroll department have programs that speak to each other. We have outdated systems. That adds to the workload. And I want to go back to our job descriptions then, and when we review a job description, I suggest that maybe we look at, has there been an excessive amount of overtime in that department or that position? And let's figure out why. Is it because of the procedures? Is it because there's too much to do? Do we need to change that for that reason? I get every once in a while you're going to have overtime. In the auditor's office at election time, you're going to have overtime. But if you have a position that is consistently overtime, that says we're not really paying attention to what's going on the ground and we're causing stress for our employees. So there's what I wanted to say.
Thank you. That's very well said and duly noted, and I think Administrator Yorkie appreciates hearing about the things that you've seen in your role and now in your new role too, because that's the kind of feedback that he needs to help evaluate how and when and where to move, all while trying to keep that balance between our spending and our efficacy as an organization.
Yeah. Could I respond?
Absolutely, please.
Thank you. I do appreciate your concerns, Commissioner Hawkins. You raised a number of issues that go beyond the position that we're talking about. I do agree that, we always need to be looking at what the workload is for staff. Frequently, when you're reallocating duties, when you're creating new positions, you're making your best estimate about what the workload is going to be. And sometimes that estimate's on target and sometimes it's not. And when you run into a situation like we're looking at today, where we have somebody whose workload has just exceeded her ability to keep up with it, you have to make adjustments. And that's really what this is about. And I'm committed to making sure, we have a very, very highly qualified workforce. We have great department leadership, we have great frontline staff. We need to be very vigilant in monitoring what they're doing and how much work they have. And it works both ways, both when people are overworked and also when jobs perhaps don't have as many responsibilities as they should have. we always need to make adjustments, and that's part of the role of administration and the department leadership in making those determinations, monitoring what's going on, and understanding when people are overburdened. And so I appreciate your comments. I think that's right on target. But I will note that it's not always possible to know in advance how things are going to shake out when you create a new job description. So.
I agree, and I get this positions, but I'm going to just say it again for future, when you bring me a job description, I probably am going to ask, has there been overtime? What's the overtime percentage on this job description for this position over the years? Because I think this is a problem we need to make sure we do. I said, I kind of think this is putting a Band-Aid on it. I don't want to put a Band-Aid on it. I want to solve the problem. So I get, today we have to do a Band-Aid, but I'm going to be looking down the road further here, because I think this is not the only department maybe this is happening in. I don't know for sure, but I want to make sure we're thinking more what we should be thinking about.
And I think I agree with you. I'm not sure about the Band-Aid analogy. I would say this is a step.
Okay.
And that's kind of I think how we need to responsibly adjust is in steps to see, because if we overstep, then that's we have to swing the other direction, and so that's kind of how we have to work through things. And my understanding is this is a hopeful step that will, and you might be right, it may not solve it, and Commissioner Swallowson, I think, agrees as well that this might not quite do it, but we're trying to be as responsible as we can with the resources that we have, and this is kind of working towards addressing that deficiency. If we could just throw more manpower, labor.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Pardon me, that was if we could throw more resources at it all, that would be wonderful. And it's my impression is that nearly every single department needs another half-time employee, and I don't think we can quite do that. And how do we navigate that? And we want to support our employees, and we want to make sure all the jobs are getting done as well as they can, but it's just managing all that is really hard. And this is a very unique time we're in on a number of reasons, both as a new board, a new administrator, COVID, a lot of new department heads. So I think we're going through quite a lot of change, and so we're all just trying to make these steps in how it plays out. But I really appreciate what you're saying and think it's right on. So.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Please, yes.
One other thing, Commissioner Hawkins, you raised a very legitimate concern about our systems and redundancy and work that we have to do, and you're exactly right about that. And we know that's a problem. And that's something that I know Ms. Dixon and also Kay Burkett in Brady's office have started looking at to see what steps we could take to address that issue. Implementing IT solutions is always a very, very tricky thing to do, and you have to proceed with caution. You have to understand what the end goal is before you start making changes. And we can say broadly what our end goal is. We want systems that are efficient, that talk to each other, and that minimize the amount of work that staff have to do. But how you get there is very challenging, and it's very easy to implement a bad IT project.
We know that.
It's super easy to do that. Yeah. So that we know that's a problem. We are taking steps to address it. It's not something that's going to be addressed overnight. And again, we want to proceed thoughtfully so that we end up with the right solution and one that works.
Yeah, and some of those. Some of that also came up in the labor negotiations, and so maybe they weren't appropriate in labor negotiations, but that's where some of them came to the forefront, and so I think since then there's been more and more efforts trying to address those as well. So,
Chair, I could just add on that. of the payroll.
Yeah.
We did make the attempt
Right.
to mitigate that. And I think what was learned, and in talking to Rena, who's done that a lot in her history, projects like that, one of the keys is to really know your system before you try to make that change. And I think that's what we're getting right now with Pam and Kay are honing that system, and I think it'll be easier to try to make that change in the future if they can continue on that.
Yeah. The Kronos fiasco, as you put it, Commissioner Hawkins, was certainly a hard lesson that we were very hopeful and very excited, and then it didn't pan out so well. Commissioner Storley, please.
Thank you. I'm glad this came up. 2018 to 2021 is a long time, but we had to skip a year, basically. Where does personnel come into this?
The committee?
Mm-hmm. Do they review job descriptions before we get it?
They do.
Okay, so the steps are, the the job is looked at, a job description is written by whom?
It depends. Sometimes it's the supervisor, the department director, and Ms. Dixon also has a role in that.
Okay, then it goes to personnel.
Correct.
Okay. So from personnel to us, there's many steps before we get it. It's kind of like we're the final say in it. Is there any way that we could have kind of a heads up as to what to be prepared for? Because then how do we don't really understand until we get it, what the implications are, overtime or whatever. So what is the first, what would be just a consideration for the first step before we get it?
Ordinarily, if we're creating a new position, the process that you just described is the one that we use. And so there does tend to be more of a heads up to the board.
Okay.
In this situation, we kind of reached a point where the situation became kind of acute.
Yeah.
And we had to address this on shorter notice. So that's kind of the difference in this case.
Right.
Does that
But I
address
think-
your
right.
question?
And I think going forward, we should be, our antennas are up now. Be fully aware of where we're going with, not let things slide. And I certainly appreciate Pamela's diligence and everything that she's done that I've been involved in too, and it's been an arm load. So, yeah. I really don't want to see this happen again.
Yeah.
For anybody's personal benefits and trials.
Yeah, and employee burnout is something that I think we need to be
Yeah.
very, very aware of, just with, I mean, if you read the news and what's going on in labor and just across the nation, there's lots of changes, and so that's something that I want to pay real close attention to in our organization, just how we can be supporting employees and make sure they're not overworked. If there's adjustments or changes, flexibility, that kind of thing, I think that would do us a whole lot of good. But did you have a comment, Ms. Simmer?
Yes, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Storley. I also just wanted to point out that the Personnel Committee minutes are included on the monthly COW agenda. So anything that's discussed during the Personnel Committee, there should be a recap in those agendas for you as well.
That's great. I'm just bringing this up for public understanding too, that this isn't just an overnight decision, that it's many people involved in it.
Well, yeah, and I think what Administrator Yorkie was saying was that in this particular case, this did not go before personnel because it's not a new position. That we had the generalist position before, and that's what the job description was based off of, was that, and this is an adjustment. I guess kind of dialing both of those positions back and then proposing them both together. So just to be, again, for the public's benefit of process. Good discussion. Any more questions or comments or thoughts? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would move to add the approve the addition of the 1/2 full-time equivalent human resources generalist.
Thank you, Commissioner Swalson. Do we have support?
Sullivan supports.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. We have a motion and support. Any further discussions? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Mr. Yorkie, item 9B.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the next item concerns a request that we've had from the Cook County Grand Marais Economic Development Authority to provide insurance benefits for the new EDA executive director at no cost to the county. The EDA is in the process of recruiting a new director upon the imminent retirement of Marais. And as part of that recruitment process, of course, they are wanting to provide insurance benefits to make sure that they can recruit the best candidate. The EDA sought to secure insurance through the Northeast Service Co-op, which is the entity through which the county gets its insurance benefits. They learned that with only one employee to insure, that this Northeast Service Cooperative would not be able to provide that benefit. You have to have at least 2 employees. And so when they found that out, they approached me and asked if it would be possible for the EDA to basically secure insurance benefits through the county. And so we talked about that, and the concern, number one, as always, is it's going to add to the county's costs, which in this case it would not. Secondly, with the EDA considering, and in fact it's on the agenda this evening for the EDA board, considering the creation of a Housing and Redevelopment Authority, it appears likely that within some fairly short period in the future, they would have a second employee. So what this proposal is to establish an agreement with the EDA to essentially put the director on the county payroll and get county benefits. The EDA would cover all costs of payroll and benefits, so there would be, again, no cost to the county. The agreement would be for a term of 1 year with a potential 1-year renewal option. And then at any point, if the EDA hires a second employee and can get benefits directly from the Northeast Service Cooperative, it would do so. And then there's also provision for the EDA to pay a nominal monthly fee to cover our administrative costs. That is the proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Yorkie. Any questions or comments from commissioners?
I was just surprised that Marais Somnus never had insurance? Really, we never, wow.
Out of the goodness of her heart, she
Wow.
was, working hard. Yeah, we got lucky. Any other questions, comments? I would just thank you, Mr. Yorkie, for looking into what options we could assist with in this situation. It was absolutely, recruitment is really important, and that's going to help ensure our success. What do they say when you have a position? You just have to get the right applicant, right? And this is going to help with that 100%. And of course, the cost of the county is a big concern too, and so this alleviates that concern. Without any other questions or comments, I would entertain a motion here.
I'll make the motion to enter into an agreement with the EDA to provide insurance benefits for the new director at no cost to the county.
Thank you, Commissioner Starley. We have a motion. Is there support?
Sullivan supports.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And we have still 10 minutes before 10 o'clock here.
Do you think we can do the tabled consent item?
I think so.
Mr. Chair, we need to do the D that Stacy asked about.
Yes.
Pulled out of the agenda.
Same topic.
Yes.
That's the same.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for the reminder. And yeah, let's do that for item 9C. It's the item from the consent agenda on the resignation of Public Information Coordinator, Mr. Yorkie. Or Commissioner Hawkins, did you have specific questions or discussion points? Yes, please.
Yes.
Please.
Okay. Well, I realize that I am kind of regretting voting for our, filling a position automatically. And I realize I wish we would have put in there, we've created a brand-new position and that person leaves within a year, that it comes back before this board before we automatically refill that position. So I kind of regret not thinking about that when we approved that policy. So I'm asking now, are we expecting to just refill this position now? Is that the expectation?
That is correct.
And I'm sorry, I still haven't met, well, I guess I did when we toured the buildings, but I never really talked to them. We were all masked up. Still not quite sure about this position. June 15th, we hired a new position. Today, we hired another new position. We've got a request coming back to us about maybe needing some septic loan money. None of this is in the budget. And as a commissioner, I still haven't seen a budget. I have no idea where we're at as dollar-wise. So I have another concern about continuing a position that maybe we could don't really need right now, especially now that we're on the backside of the pandemic. So that's my concern.
Okay.
Yeah, and my understanding is the septic loan is not going to affect the budget. That's money we loan out and get back, and we just use our reserves. for it.
Well, according to the packet, they want to take $500,000 out of the fund balance.
Yeah, but then
So
That you get it back.
We'll save that discussion. I don't want to move there. But,
oh, I just wanted to respond to your concern,
Yeah,
and that's how that works.
But it is money that can't be used for something else. If we set aside $500,000 for septic loans, it's money that can't be used for something else. I'm questioning. I know there's lots of needs out there. We talk about deferred maintenance. We talk about programs that don't talk to each other. As a commissioner, I have to decide what's the best use of the money. And I certainly think septic loans is very important. There's lots of important things. So I'm just asking, in this position, I wasn't a big supporter at the beginning, and I'm still questioning this. So that's why I'm raising. I have concerns about automatically refilling this position in light of what we have spent in the 6 months that I've been a commissioner, and I don't have any numbers to prove that it's all okay. That's.
Yeah, and so this position would currently be using our previous budget, and the money's there. And when we adopted the administrative form of government, I think your questions absolutely should be asked, and your points absolutely should be brought up. What I was going to say is, when we approve the position, that more or less moves it into the hands of the administrator. And then in the organization, that's the administrator's role to evaluate the county's needs, and we, of course, oversee the administrator's role. And with that being said, I don't know if the administrator wants to respond to the position itself and just process, but from my perspective, if we were to go over that multiple times, it's kind of rehashing or beating a dead horse, so to speak. But I think asking those questions is important because we want to have critical eyes on operations. And I share your discomfort with what's going to be happening in the future with the budget, because that's not entirely clear, and there's a lot of unknowns out there still, both as far as Ty Blatnick, as far as our new positions, as far as tax capacity. All those things are out there, and so I'm anxiously awaiting updates, which will be coming, I believe, in 2 weeks. And then we can have more discussions about that. But Mr. Yorkie, do you want to talk at all about the continuation of the position?
Sure. Well, I guess the first thing to remember is that this is a shared position with North Shore Health. And the contract that we entered into with North Shore Health, I believe, started when Nick did in
December 2020.
December of 2020. So at this point, we are contractually obligated to maintain this position for at least a year. So if we were to, if this board were to decide that it wanted to discontinue the position, we would be in breach of that contract. The other thing is that we were just having a conversation about making sure that people's workloads are appropriately managed. And this position was created because our primarily public health staff, but also Lisa Sorley and the highway department did not have the bandwidth to do the communications work that we needed to do. And that was the basis for creating this position. And we did so in partnership with the hospital to save costs for both organizations. So when I heard, and I should mention too, Nick Cusick, who held this position until his resignation, he was not looking for another position. He was actually quite happy with this one. And just happened to stumble across an ad in the News Herald for a position that Visit Cook County was recruiting for. And Nick came to us with a tourism background. He was working for the St. Paul Convention and Visitors Bureau, and his academic training is in hospitality management and tourism. And so, it was just one of those things where he wasn't really planning to look for another job, but this came up and it aligned with his experience, and so he felt obligated to pursue it, and did so by first asking me if, he came to me before he actually approached Visit Cook County, which I really appreciated. In any case, so his position, our communication needs are significant, and he's been very busy the whole time that he's worked for us. He hasn't had any downtime. And so in terms of whether this position is necessary, I would say emphatically, yes, it is. And the other thing is, when Nick resigned, I immediately called Kimber Allstead over at the hospital to ask about her feedback on whether or not we should maintain this position. I felt pretty clearly on our end it was a winner. But she also said absolutely they need this help. So, it is a partnership. We do have a contract. That contract obligates us to maintain the position for at least a year.
Please, yeah, please.
Can you give me specific things that Nick has done over the last 6 months?
Sure. Lots.
Yeah. Could you just list some out for me?
Sure. The Voices of Vaccination campaign. Have you seen the ads with like John Moran, other community members? He spent a lot of time on that campaign.
Okay.
Numerous press releases. Every week we have press releases that go out, and Nick coordinates all of those. He works with departments. He's a busy guy. And if you want work product, if you need that, we can certainly put that together.
Well, yeah, because I realized when this was created, it was because of the pandemic. We needed help to get the message out, and I'm just wondering now that we're on the backside, we're not going to get updates from Grace every month. The EOC is closed. I just wonder what's next. I'm wondering, and yeah, I have to make a decision. I forgot about the contract. I probably should have read that before today, but
No, that's
yeah,
why we're,
I
that's
get
why
we're
we're talking.
contract,
Yeah.
so I get that, but I'm
Well-
also concerned about our budget.
And for me, the needs of communication for the pandemic, that was over the top for the position. But the position was talked about well before the pandemic. Through our AMC trainings, we've had presentations. I think Otter Tail County is really the one that opened my eyes to the position, and the previous board was very interested, and I was excited. I don't know if the rest of the board is excited for that kind of opportunity to really help the organization evolve. And then when the pandemic hit and we saw the effect that communications was having on different department heads, then it was just overwhelmingly like, yes, this is more or less emergency state. We need this position versus something that we should be working to include in the organization. So, and yeah, just the support that they give. The one project that James didn't mention that came to my mind was the website update.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, he's not doing that, and that was the intention, was for him to do that. And so I spoke with Rena, and she has been working on that in the meanwhile here. But that's another big one where we really got to get information out to the public, and we need the information to be accessible, easily found. And so that's largely what this position will be working on as well. But I want to encourage you to ask these questions, because these discussions are very important, both for our understanding as well as the public's. Just what's going on and why is it going on? It really helps, I think, everything. So thank you for bringing this forward and pulling it from the consent agenda. And thank you, Mr. Yorkie, for talking through it a fair amount.
Mm-hmm.
The budget is I mean, yeah, that's on my mind as well. The labor negotiations they're coming, and I don't know if you've been paying attention to the CPI, but it's gonna get real. Commissioner Sullivan?
Mr. Chair, we have a couple of things. We certainly have the position that we're discussing, but we also need, as a separate item, to take action on this resignation. So if there's no further discussion, I would like to move to approve the resignation with regret of Nick Cusick.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. We have a motion. Is there support?
Swallowson supports.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? This isn't in response or about this per se, but commissioners are free to make motions at any point, so you don't need for me to call on you to make the motion. So thank you for taking the initiative there, Commissioner Sullivan. No further discussion. I'd just ask all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We have unanimous approval, acceptance with regret of the resignation of Nick Cusick. Here we are, after 10 o'clock. That brings us back to, let's see, item 6, Attorney Hicken. We have a closed session to discuss pending litigation. And so I have just a little statement to help us navigate that. At this time, the Cook County Board of Commission. Oh, please, Attorney Hicken. That was good.
The closed session doesn't start until the board votes for a closed session.
Mhm.
So it has to be by action of the board.
Okay.
Would you like for me to give you a little summary of why I recommend?
Before? Sure, yes, please.
So I'm going to recommend that the board take action by a majority vote to have a closed session for a consultation with the county's attorney through MCIT. Her name is Kendra Olson, related to pending litigation in Julie Coleman versus Cook County. The board may enter into a closed session under open meeting law. That's Minnesota Statute 13D05, subdivision 3, subparagraph B, under the attorney-client privilege to discuss legal issues, legal advice, and litigation strategy. Recording and streaming of the session must be stopped for the closed session. And what we would do is we would shut down our operation in this room, and we would move into the ITV room and get Kendra Olson connected virtually. But the motion that is made and seconded and voted on should refer to the pending litigation by the case name and the purpose of the closed session. Any questions?
I don't think so, and you spoke all the language that I was going to read, so.
Okay.
So thank you. I don't have to read it now.
Okay.
I do have a question. Is she available right now?
Yes.
Okay. Could we have a 5-minute break on our walk over to the room?
She says yep, that's fine.
Okay.
Good question, thank you. Okay, well, I will move that we enter a closed session for pending litigation with Coleman versus Cook County, and pursuant of Minnesota Statutes 3D.05, subdivision 3, subparagraph B. Is there support?
Swallowson supports.
Thank you, Commissioner Swallowson. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
Can hook her up on this if you want.
Okay, great.
I also sent you the invite for the teams.
Okay, yeah, I didn't.
I'm going to apologize
I
to both
sent
of
it
you.
to her.
My allergies are acting up
Okay.
today.
So she's got two.
So that's why I keep,
Well, I suppose we can.
so,
I
I'm
never
really not
questioned it
at,
was
If
COVID.
you
I
want
did
to,
question
that's
whether it was
great.
plague.
just clear. Today it decided to act
Oh,
up again.
The plague.
When I'm home, I move around a lot.
Although I shouldn't say that.
Not a lot.
Sir?
Thank you.
So what are you allergic to? Almost everything. I know. Trees and pollen. We just leave the camera going, right? Yeah.
Guessing we're all in the restroom right now, so we'll just make it public.
and then we should be pretty much done. Awesome. Is that a roommate? So cute. I got this at
I mean, I think, you know, the easiest thing to do would just be a sign up here that shows on there. But there probably is a way to introduce that kind of a slide. I don't know how, but every time I try to figure out anything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
And YouTube.
I don't want to touch anything right now.
Do you have a lot of information for YouTube?
I'm logged on.
Yes, I think it is. Try to find those videos that they did for vaccination. They changed the password since last time I did. I couldn't figure out what they did. This is what time it was. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I'll go with Kirk and see if there's a way to, if not, we'll, maybe I'll print out a sign to put up there.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't happen very often,
No,
but when it does, you're right. But everything else seemed to be working pretty well today, so that's good.
No issues.
Yeah, must be a pretty involved meeting. Oh, wait, this is you.
Oh, hey, guys.
Did you miss us? She's been patiently waiting.
Ooh.
The one thing I'm missing from over there is my cords.
This one?
Yeah, that one.
Give me a second to get my notes back up.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh. Okay.
And then that black.
Black one?
Because my computer's about to die.
Okay.
I brought my charger too, just in case, but.
There we go. Thank you.
Okay.
You do not have to wait for me unless
Oh,
this is
that's, well, then,
distracting.
thank you. And then,
Excuse me.
I guess I just close the closed session and we reconvene with our regular meeting. It is now 11:30, and where we are in our agenda is under item 9, Administrator, and we did go through the item that we added under there with the resignation of our Public Information Coordinator, and so we're down to Administrator updates.
All right.
Mr. Yogi.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. And just a few things today. I wanted to bring to your attention the fact that in your agenda packet is a copy of the EDA board agenda. The EDA board is meeting later today. One of the items that we'll be considering is a proposal to create a housing and redevelopment authority. The EDA board will be voting on that proposal today. We plan to come to you at next week's Committee of the Whole meeting to present the results of that vote and to talk about the proposal. It's been fleshed out a little bit since the last time we talked about it. And then we would ask for this board to vote on the creation of the EDA on the 27th.
HRA.
Thank you, HRA. Sorry, I misspoke. So that's where that effort is. And before I move on to my next item, are there any questions about that? There will be a lot more information presented next week at the Committee of the Whole. So if there are no questions about that, I just wanted to say that there's some movement on our efforts to renovate and insulate the recycling center. I was in contact with a vendor yesterday. You may recall we had two bids on that work. We've been jumping through some hoops to try to enter into an arrangement with one of the bidders. It's not clear that we're going to be able to move forward on that, and so I've contacted the other vendor to see if we can get an updated price quote, and so I should have more information on that at the next business session on the 27th. Next item concerns our strategic planning efforts. I did have a follow-up conversation when we first talked about doing a strategic plan, I contacted Heather Van Deen at the Association of Minnesota Counties. I think most of you know Heather. She's a pretty smart woman and has a lot of good advice. She suggested that we talk to one of their partners, a guy named Roger Reinert, who has a consulting company in Duluth. He's a former state senator, and he now assists local governments on a variety of different initiatives, one of which is strategic planning. And so I spoke to Roger at length about what our needs were and asked him to submit a proposal, which he did. And I've got that proposal, and I just wanted to make you aware of it and kind of have some discussion about the possibility of contracting with his firm. So the proposal is in the amount of $15,600, and I can just summarize the scope real quickly. Hang on a second. So the cost, the $15,600 would include 6 full-day facilitated sessions with staff and this board, and any other partners that we would designate. 12 additional contracted hours at $300 an hour before the process begins, and then also during the in between the scheduled sessions and after the adoption for completion. And then there would be additional expenses, including mileage, lodging, and per diem, consistent with GSA guidelines. And so I really just wanted to bring this up to get the board's feedback on getting this kind of assistance. And the reason I'm asking about this is because my bandwidth is limited. And I was hoping that I could lead this process. And it's just become apparent that with everything else that's going on, I don't have the time to give it the full attention that it deserves. And so my request would be for the board to consider contracting with an outside vendor to provide leadership in developing the strategic plan.
Questions, comments from the board on that note?
Having been through a number, Mr. Chair, of strategic planning sessions, the $15,600 for 6 full days plus all the work before, during, and after is very reasonable based on my experiences. So I just wanted to point that out, having recently gone through some strategic planning through another nonprofit.
Commissioner Hawkins, please.
Yep. Another issue I know nothing about, so I'm going to ask some questions. What are the deliverables? I mean, 6 full-day sessions, what do we get to keep?
We get a strategic plan.
Which is how long? 5 years, 10 years?
It would be a 5-year plan.
5-year plan,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
And is this plan going to look at our facilities, our finances?
It's going to look at the strategic direction of the organization in terms of how our service delivery aligns with community goals. And so the board would have lots of opportunity to kind of help define that strategic vision. I mean, it's really about determining where do we want to go as an organization, and that relates to what do we see as kind of the future state of our organization and how we can best serve residents.
And so do the residents get involved in any way? Is there community input?
You know, I think that's a really good question. I think we already solicit resident feedback on the services we provide, and that would certainly inform. I mean, I would think that information would inform the development of the plan. In terms of whether we would actually engage citizens in helping us identify strategic objectives, I'm not sure that would be the case.
And that could be a good question for, is it Mr. Reinhardt?
Reinhardt.
Reinhardt, yeah.
Yep.
To see how he best, the fact that, it's an AMC partner and recommended by Heather Van Deen, holds a lot of weight with me. My experience with her has been phenomenal, and really value her advice and experience. And the cost does seem very reasonable, and I do want to recognize your bandwidth because we are asking a lot of you, and especially your the timeline of when you joined the organization and the facilities plan and yes, the budget and then also COVID to boot. So just everything, Yes, Commissioner Saulson.
Just so for clarification, so I know we were working on two different things from the county perspective. We had our moving forward with a plan that had been started earlier, the mission, vision, values, this type of thing.
Correct.
And then we started off on a strategic plan as far as capital spending and trying to roll all these things together.
Correct.
Which are we talking about here?
We're talking about a strategic plan for the organization. The capital improvement program and the update of the financial management plan is something that Brady and I are going to take the lead on.
And I just, because both of those were in process, and I know you were working on both fronts, I just wanted to clarify to make sure that we had a clear understanding of what we were doing here.
And
that. And I know that part of our discussions on this was because we have a lot of things on the list of what we'd like to do.
Yeah.
And the biggest challenge was going to be that prioritization process. I know that from going through it a few times and trying to make that, for each of them, each of the departments will be a little bit different on how they do that. I think the folks in the highway department with the equipment have done almost all of the work on that piece because they've really detailed that out with a good public input from the, those on that committee. So that piece gives you some of that. We tried to do that with the building committee. That didn't grow legs like we had hoped it would to get the engagement on it. But I see your point on that. And if they can come in and help with that piece for that price, even notwithstanding the travel cost, adder on that, I still think that's a very reasonable perspective looking at that.
Yeah.
So I'm open for that discussion, clearly.
Okay, great.
I think it gives us a chance to build on what we've already done. The last strategic plan was a few years ago, and some of it has already been done. A lot of it hasn't. So I think this is a good chance now to start reviewing that and start to build the next 5 years.
Great.
If you don't have a plan, you don't have a plan.
You're doing it on the eaches.
Great. Well, thank you. I'll be perhaps at the meeting on the 27th, and I can bring forward the proposal for consideration and approval.
Sooner the better in our process.
Yeah.
Well, and to be clear, as far as the capital and the financial management plan, there will be, you and Brady are taking the lead, but there is support from Ellers as well, right? Is that?
We'll be talking to them about, it's not clear at this point exactly what level of support we're going to need from them, but likely we'll need some help.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for that feedback. The next item I have concerns the American Rescue Plan. I believe the last time this board met was June 22nd. It was the day after we'd held the first of two meetings with community stakeholders to talk about the approximately $1,060,000 that the county is receiving in a direct allocation from the U.S. Treasury for under the American Rescue Plan. And as I mentioned at that meeting, there are a variety of purposes for which this funding can be used related to pandemic recovery, vaccinations, et cetera. Also infrastructure, including water and wastewater, broadband, and then also, making up for lost income for local governments, et cetera, and then also premium pay for essential workers. And so the second conversation that we had, I think I mentioned the conversation we had on June 21st, mainly focused on investing more in public health, also investing in potentially in broadband, specifically for lower income households to make sure that there is no digital divide here in Cook County. And then the other key interest was water and wastewater infrastructure to help us address our housing issues. The second meeting that we had on Friday, June 25th, was really, it was a much smaller group, and the overriding message that I got from that group was they really wanted to see as much of this funding, if not all of it, go to infrastructure for housing. I think most people recognize that as being sort of the single biggest issue that our community is facing, and that it needs to be addressed for the vitality of the whole community. So that's the summary of that conversation. Where we are now is I've asked a couple of entities, including our Public Health Department and Arrowhead Electric Co-op, to provide some mini proposals to propose how they would use funding from ARP. And once we get those, we'll be kind of assessing them and putting together sort of a draft budget that we would then, I expect we'll have another public meeting. There are going to be more opportunities for our community partners to continue this discussion before we finalize a budget proposal that we would then bring to this board for approval.
I'd like to learn more about the potential digital divide. The initial rollout of fiber to nearly every home in the county, I thought was fairly successful, and I know it wasn't 100% coverage, but pretty darn close. And so in my mind, when we're having these discussions, there are also other opportunities to address that potential digital divide. So I would like to learn more about that and hear more about that when we start making these decisions.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. The last thing on my list today, we received an email from a woman who teaches yoga, and she was requesting the use of the courthouse grounds to conduct free yoga classes early in the morning and over the lunch hour. And it's an unusual request. It's the first request of this nature that I've received since I started this position. And so we have done some follow-up. I've talked with Molly about it. We've contacted MCIT. And we don't currently, at least to my knowledge, and maybe somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not sure that we have a policy that would necessarily address this kind of request. And so really what it comes down to is, what is the board's comfort level with giving approval for this kind of thing to go on. I think there would be a benefit to the community and potentially our organization to have this kind of class offered on premises. There are some liability issues that would need to be addressed. MCIT has recommended that participants in the class would need to sign a waiver, and then also we would need to have some kind of verification of the instructor's willingness to take on liability as well. Molly, I don't know if you want to say more about that.
Yeah, we would need an agreement with MCIT advises that we would need an agreement with the instructor to indemnify the county should any third party sue for damages related to the yoga classes. I did ask for, this is Rachel Schauer, I think is her last name, and she's a Violence Prevention Center employee, if that gives you any context. But I did ask that she provide her certifications to the county, which she did, so she is a certified yoga instructor. I provided some language that we can publish as part of just if we were to publicize this, for example, in our weekly newsletter as something available for county employees, just about, the risks of yoga, which are relatively low compared to like high impact exercise. But I just grabbed some stuff from the National Institutes of Health. What else? Rachel has offered that through her website sign-up process, she could have anyone who signed up online for these classes check the box that they had read a waiver as part of the registration, and that she could have waivers in writing available on paper available at the class for people who showed up without registering. And I was just going to mention, I guess what's unprecedented about this is that somebody would approach us and ask our permission in a formal way, and ask for like regular use of the lawn. Certainly it would not be unprecedented for members of the public to use the courthouse lawn for activities. We have kids who use the snow pile to slide down. We have people playing football out there, daycare kids walking across the dog walkers. It's a public space, and it really is just a question of what if commissioners and administration are willing to bear the risk. I'm certainly willing to draft up the indemnity agreement.
And I'll just say, this request came to my office, and initially I thought, well, if Molly gives consent and MCIT is good with it, then I would be good with it. But I didn't want any of you to be caught off guard if you are driving by one day and see people doing yoga on the lawn. So I don't know that this necessarily requires action on your part. If you want to formally approve it, you could, but it's primarily for information.
Commissioner Storley.
Thank you. Did she say how many days a week?
Let's see, what was the...
It would be Monday mornings, I believe 6:45 to 7:45, and Tuesdays during the lunch hour from 12 to 12:50.
Do you think it'll impact the parking here?
We could address that in an agreement.
Because they'll be driving to their yoga class.
Possibly, or walking.
Some might.
Or walking, probably,
Yeah.
but yeah. The morning one wouldn't affect it, but I don't know, just thinking outside the box.
That's good.
That's a good point.
A thought or question I had is checking a box electronically as good as a signature. Would we not want a signature to release us given liability issues?
I guess a signature might be better in some ways. I think the electronic signature method of getting consent is also pretty common these days. But we can sort through that.
Okay.
Thank you for the question.
It'll probably be a seasonal event unless they want to be at a snowbank.
Well, we used to have yoga right in this room.
I think that made a difference if it was strictly for employees and it was done by employees after hours. And so she wants to open it up to the community as a whole in a donation-based yoga program.
I don't think I have concerns. I think that'd be great. It's a great community building potential, and just as long as we're covered for whatever risks there might be. Myself, looks like we have consensus there.
Thank you. That is all I have.
Well, thank you, Mr. Yorkie.
Thank you.
That brings us down to item 10 on our agenda, employee concerns / commissioner concerns, commissioner reports and meeting updates. Any reports or updates from commissioners for our first in-person meeting here?
Mr. Chair, I have a couple of updates.
Please.
I had an opportunity to go to the Gunflint Trail Volunteer Fire Department evacuation meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I was just really impressed with the number of people that came out. They actually ran out of handouts. They had so many that came, probably because of our high fire danger. There were more interested parties than usual, but I was really impressed with the strategic planning, the response to the questions, and just feel like we're in good shape when an event occurs. So just wanted to make everyone aware that we're in good shape up the trail. I also, thinking of up the trail, wanted to update people on a situation that's gotten some coverage on WTIP, and commissioners may have had some questions about the bridge replacement or culvert replacement up by Seagull and Larch Creek. There were some concerns about the amount of activity and large equipment up there. And Robbie Haas and also the U.S. Forest Service did go up there yesterday and had a meeting at 1 o'clock. They took a number of photographs, which they shared, and the project is going well. It is a bridge replacement, and up by Larch Creek and Seagull Creek, it does require a bypass for emergency vehicles. So the road is wider than it typically it would be. That fill will be removed once the project is completed and things brought back and in fact improved upon. And everything will be seeded with native seed that's being supplied by MnDOT. All our silt protection is in place, erosion control. They are going to, for a week to a week and a half, depending on weather, going to change the entry point to the boundary waters from there, because large equipment and canoes and dogs and kids don't mix. So that is being done by the U.S. Forest Service. But I just wanted to clarify that everything is checking out, all the permits are in place, we're ready to roll.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. Any other comments or reports from Commissioner Storley, please?
Yes, thank you. Well, from last Thursday until yesterday, I attended some NACO meetings, National Association of Counties, of which there's over 3,000. This was a most unusual conference in that it was in-person and virtual. The newer commissioners do not know this lady, but we have now a Minnesota representative.
Nice.
Mary Jo McGuire, Ramsey County Commissioner, was voted in. Yay!
Yeah.
I helped vote. I voted for one.
Yeah.
That was my vote. Each county is allowed so many, depending upon how many representatives you have. And since I represent the Health Committee, then I had a chance to vote. And I'll give a report on that when we have our Public Health and Human Services meeting. It was a little dicey at some of the virtual conferences, but the majority of the two that I attended worked really well. I was able to hear Vice President Kamala Harris give a presentation, and also Nancy Pelosi. And they thanked us all for being the grassroots of the United States and bringing forth a lot of issues that comes before the Congress and Senate, and and we were referred to as worker bees, and so I'll take that.
Accept that.
Yeah, it was good. I think they pulled it off as best you could, trying to be virtual across all of the United States, plus Hawaii and Puerto Rico and all of that too. So it was good and well received, I think, at their end. And I received a little goodie box yesterday. So I think they really wanted that to be out before the conference, but that's okay. I can eat peanuts out of a box anytime. So anyway, that was, usually I don't go to the summer ones. I did to one of them because the summer event is preparing for the big event in Washington, D.C., where you have your platform pretty well set in the summer, and then you go to Washington, D.C., and then that's when the majority of the important votes are taken. But, you know, it is good to at least be part of the summer platform making, and so I was glad I could do that. Thanks to April getting me all signed up.
Yeah, thank you for attending and representing and voting for Mary Jo. That's huge for Minnesota. So that's
to have somebody from the Midwest.
Yeah.
And when you all get to a AMC larger state convention, you'll be able to meet her and you'll understand how she.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she's already been a legislator and a senator, so she has good background and good skills, and she's very vivacious. So just kind of stand back.
Yeah, I was going to say, I actually would be a little surprised if you hadn't met her already, just the way she operates. She's very,
Yeah.
she's a go-getter and will introduce herself. And,
Yeah.
All right. Any other? Commissioner Swalson, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. The first one I have is a concern that I think we may need to pay a little more attention to, maybe through either the sheriff's office or Mike Keyport, and that's the number of 911 outages that we're incurring here in Cook County. It's not clear to those of us that are staffing the fire halls when that occurs, and for the length of time that it occurs, what the resolution or the proposed resolution or time frame is. And so I've been getting a lot of feedback up in my district. Possibly, we've been having more than most of the districts as far as issues. We've had some that have lasted for over 2 days, that we've had our fire hall staffed for that entire time with a very small staff of volunteers that are putting in time and sleeping in the fire hall so that people can come and so I bring that forward just because I think it needs a little more visibility and maybe some more discussion, or at least a plan and an update possibly. And if we could get that, or I'm requesting that we can get something like that through, whether it be through Mike Keyport or the sheriff's office, of what's being done to improve that for the county. Okay?
Yeah.
That's one item I had. The other one, Commissioner Hawkins brought up something earlier that just reminded me again. In some of the meetings that we've been with AMC and others and discussions with other county commissioners, they talked about the budget updates that they get periodically throughout the time frame, and I've noted that we don't seem to have that mechanism baked in, or at least it's not as apparent to me how we, as we progress through the year, get an update on a periodic basis. I'm not prescribing any periodic basis. I'm just saying it seems like at other counties they're doing that and getting that out in some form and some detail that the board is comfortable to say, yeah, I feel like I've got a good, understanding of where we're going. And am I missing that, or I just haven't seen it?
Well, yes, you are missing that because it's not happening.
Okay.
Brady and I talked about that recently,
Okay.
and we are planning to. And I think this is probably pandemic when.
And that's what I was going to ask, was if it was driven by that.
Totally COVID, pandemic, and 4 elections last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the plan, Commissioner, is to resume doing budget updates on a quarterly basis.
Next meeting.
Okay, great. Guess my timing was
Yeah.
just.
You're ahead of the curve.
Okay, yeah, no, that's all, that's what I had for today. Thank you.
Great.
Any other comments or reports or updates?
I guess I'll report. I did our housing work group. I'm really excited about the work of that group. We had a good meeting, and there really is passion for us helping address the issue of housing. It's not going to be an easy one, but it was a good work group session that night, so I'm very positive that we can make something happen.
Thank you for being a part of that. It's, I think there's a lot of momentum, and you're helping. One thing I wanted to talk about is Administrator Yorkey's 6-month review, which is tardy, but I am in process, and I think I have 3 department heads left to talk with, and Ms. Dixon helped me by sending out a department head feedback form, which is just a framework for discussion. This isn't very formal. It's been just kind of candid conversations, and but I wanted some framework at least to base the conversation off of, as well as the job description for the county administrator, and then also. James, in his interview, had provided a 30, 60, 90 day plan that the board really liked at that time, and I still like. And so those were kind of 3 documents to kind of go over. But So what I'm doing is having these conversations with department heads, getting feedback, anonymously summarizing, and then we'll present that to the board as a whole, and as well as James in a closed session for that review. And we can just have a discussion there. I'm anticipating a one-year review, which is not all that far away, to be a little bit more formal and to have things in writing for that. But I just wanted to give you an update on that, and we do need to schedule that session. And so I didn't know if this was a good time to talk about that, or we can also try the old doodle poll. My ideal would be Monday the 26th, I believe is the date. But didn't know if we were all in a position to talk about that right now, or if we
My
want.
only concern about that would be is that we're doing the budget presentation the next day.
Plate full?
I would prefer to do it
Yeah,
after that.
Yeah, yeah.
If possible.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. My next ideal would be either July 30th or moving into the next week. So,
30th works for me.
30th works for me.
I will be out of town.
yeah, that's part of what I'm dealing with too, is just trying to, where can this fit? So, when might you be back?
The next day, Saturday.
Oh,
No.
well, the 2nd, is that, how
That
does that?
works.
I'm hoping to be.
Oh, yeah, you're,
Yeah.
May have to go with the poll.
well, we could do a Saturday thing if, wait, when are you leaving?
I would be leaving that day.
Ah,
Yeah,
of course, yes.
yeah.
Can I do it
Summertime.
remotely?
Yeah, we could. I mean, yeah.
And do it on the 30th?
We're holding the 30th for interviews of the community center director / extension
Thank
director.
you.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
have that in
These
there.
discussions.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, we had tentatively put this on the next week's committee of the whole, a section blocked off for closed session, and if there's no formal decision that's done, I was going to ask Attorney Giffen if that's to do that.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Well, before you do, I'll be gone. So that hurts that. I'll be gone the 19th through the 25th. So that's where all this started getting messy, was, of course, my schedule. So, which, it was about the community of the whole,
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
a closed session after that, so. Well, here we are.
First week of August, anyone?
Well, James will be gone.
Still, okay.
Well, he'll be leaving the 31st. The 30th is those interviews. Thank you for reminding me of that. And you'll be gone that week. So then we're really pushing it into the week of August 9th. Wednesday is open for me. I'm not anticipating this to be a real long conversation, but just a good check-in and update, so.
It's a good uprating.
I'm sorry?
A good uprating.
Upbraiding?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that.
Scolding.
Oh. Yeah.
Should we do first thing in the morning, like an 8 o'clock?
On the 11th,
Mm-hmm.
I am free for that. Does that look good? Commissioner Storley, I know your schedule is,
On the 11th, we don't have a board meeting, though.
we do not have a board meeting. This would be a special,
Okay.
special trip, basically. And not a long one. I don't know that it needs to be first thing in the morning, but that was just maybe a potential opening.
Yeah.
So if another time works better for you, or another day for that matter is fine too. But that's wide open for me. I do have windows in that week as well, between meetings.
Friday the 13th? A lucky day for Administrator Yorkie.
Chair, the other option would be, since we have a board meeting on the 10th, is to do a closed session sometime maybe towards the end, so you're not having to come in here 2 days in a row.
Yes. And, yeah. That works for me. there is the risk of our longer meetings, potential. Not that I anticipate that happening, but I tend to go on and on. How does that look for the rest of the board on the 10th?
Bring a snack.
Yep. I do have a meeting at 1, so there
Yeah.
could be conflict, but it's, if we can squeeze it in there. Thank you, April, for that suggestion. So we'll write that in, noon o'clock maybe? Is that a safe-ish time?
Attorney, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if we're going to do this as part of the regular board meeting and just put it on as a closed session, we don't need to actually vote for a special meeting, correct?
Right, if it happens during the regular meeting, no special notice requirements.
Oh, thank you, and that's what you were asking me for, I understand. So we just, during that, at the end of that, near the end of that meeting, we would just close it and then,
Right.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very,
No additional notice needed or anything.
yeah.
It would be nice
slick.
to include it in the agenda.
Sure,
So
yep.
that people have a heads up.
Yep, very good, thank you. Thank you for that suggestion as well. And I'll just assume it's gonna take an hour. That's how long I've been scheduling for the department head conversations, and that's given me plenty of time, and I can summarize and we can discuss, so. Great. Well, and I think that'll be the only update for me today. Anyone else have anything further? All right, that moves us on to the meetings to note, which we can all reference, particularly the AMC 201 sessions, which I will be attending. I originally was not planning on that, just scheduling and a number of things going on in my personal life, but I think it's very important, and I want to continue, building our team, and so I thought I'd make an extra effort there. But another one that's worth noting is the Labor Management Committee on July 29th. Originally, I was having a very hard time finding time to schedule that, and so Commissioner Sullivan was able to, but now I am able to, so I kind of took that back, and Commissioner Swalson, you're also available, and so that'll be really, really good training, and I'm really hoping that helps our organization move forward here. More communication is always better. Then, of course, the Racial Equity Work Group, August 4th at 7 p.m. And that presentation in Grand Portage that we had was recorded, and a really good presentation. And really, that was my first visit to Grand Portage since the renovations, and of course, then after COVID too. It was just a really, really wonderful space. And I believe the gala this fall will be held there, and so that's just exciting. Up there, and then Community Leadership Committee, August 12th at 5:30. Correspondence, and then we have recognition of staff, and pretty significant recognition here is the naturalization of Plamen Dimitrov as a U.S. citizen, and I just want to congratulate him, and I'm really excited to know him. I've known him for quite a while, since I was a chimney sweep, and he was in charge of maintenance at Bluefin is where I first met him, and I'm really happy that he's with the county, our organization, and just really pleased. So congratulations, Plamen. Thank you for being here. We also have new hires, Melissa Beseres, is that? Beseres, yep, as our PHHS social worker, so welcome. Thank you for joining the team. Excited to have you here as well. And then we have July anniversaries. Beth Benson in PHHS for 2 years. Plamen again is 3 years. Mitch Everson, Land Services, 11 years. Chris Fenstead at the Recycle Center, 4 years. Molly Hicken, our attorney, 14 years. Britta Moose, Sheriff's Office, 4 years. And Chris Schrupp, Sheriff's Office, 8 years. And then moving on to our milestone anniversaries, Phil Larson with Soil and Water, 5 years, and Brady Powers, 30 years.
Hey.
This is
That must be a misprint.
That is not a typo.
It's incredible.
It's only 6 5-year anniversaries. Halfway through your career.
Seems like yesterday, huh? I think
Yesterday.
I think James said, then the next 30 will be just as good.
That's right. That's right.
Wherever they may be.
Well, oh, I assumed here. That's what that implied. And Dagmara Smith, PHHS, 5 years. And so thank you all for your service and the special thanks for those milestone anniversaries. Is there anything else that needs to come before the board today? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Commissioner Hawkins. We have a motion. Is there
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Swalson. Motion and support. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Same sign. Approved unanimously. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Where do I click to leave the meeting?